Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another Saturday night dars. Tonight we'll be covering the 19th word, which is about the messengership of our Prophet Muhammed SAW. We tend to not speak much about our Prophet Muhammed SAW, but it's actually very crucial that we know why he was sent and about his personality, his qualities, as he should be our only leader in mankind, who is the most perfect man to ever be created. Whereas we look at other people who may not be perfect, but we try to role model them. So why don't we role model the perfect of all? The 19th word. I could not praise Muhammad with my words. Rather, my words were made praiseworthy by Muhammad. Yes, this word is beautiful. But what makes it so beautiful of all things, the attributes and qualities of Muhammad SAW. What makes this 19th word beautiful is the most beautiful of all things, the attributes and qualities of Muhammad SAW himself. So describing him makes this word beautiful. For no description is beautiful or fitting. First droplets. There are three great and universal things which make known to us our sustainer. There are three great things and universal things which make us known our sustainer, which describes to us Allah. One is the book of the universe, a jot of whose testimony we have heard from the 13 flashes, together with the 30th lesson from the Arabic Risale-i Nur. Another is the seal of the prophets, alayhimus salam, the supreme sign of the book of the universe. The other is the Quran of mighty stature. Now, we must become acquainted, we must understand the seal of the prophets, Muhammad SAW, who is the second and articulate proof, and we must listen to him. Yes, consider the collective personality of this proof. The face of the earth has become his mosque. Mecca has become his mihrab. And Medina has become his pulpit. Our Prophet Muhammad SAW, this clear proof, is leader of all the believers. He is the preacher to all mankind. He is the chief of all prophets, the Lord of all the saints, the leader of a circle for the remembrance of God, comprising all the prophets and saints. So he is the leader of all beliefs in regarding to Allah. He is the leader of that circle. He is a luminous tree whose living roots are all the prophets, and fresh fruits are all the saints. He is the bridge connecting both, whose claims all the prophets relying on their miracles and all the saints relying on their wonder working confirm and corroborate. So every prophet and every saint confirm and corroborate our Rasul Muhammad SAW. For he declares and claims, there is no God but God, La ilaha illallah. And on left and right, that is, those luminous reciters of Allah's names, lined up in the past and the future, so on his left and his right, the past and the future, they repeat the same words that Muhammad SAW came to preach, which is La ilaha illallah. And through their consensus in effective declaration of the same thing, through declaring the same thing which our Prophet has declared, they say, you speak the truth and what you say is right. So, what false idea has the power to meddle in a claim which is thus affirmed and corroborated by thousands? Who can go against this claim made by thousands which is affirmed and corroborated. The second droplet. Just as that luminous proof of divine unity of Tawheed is affirmed by the unanimity and consensus of those two wings, so do hundreds of indications in the revealed scriptures like the Torah and Injil, the Torah and the Bible. The thousands of signs that appeared before the beginning of his mission, and the well-known news given by the voices from the unseen and the unanimous testimony of the soothsayers. The indications of the thousands of his miracles, like the splitting of the moon, the justice of the Sharia, all confirm and corroborate him. Here there's an increased focus on Rasulullah SAW himself and his prophethood. And here he talks about how there is hundreds of indications in the revealed scriptures, like the Torah and Injil, like the Torah and the Bible, and the thousands of signs that appeared before the beginning of his mission, before his birth, the well-known news given by the voices from the unseen, the alim-i ghaib, and the unanimous testimony of the soothsayers. The indications of the thousands of his miracles, each of his miracles, like splitting of the moon, the justice of the Sharia, all confirm and corroborate him. So too, in his person, his laudable morals, his perfect morality, him being the most perfect human to ever set foot on this earth, which were all at the summit of perfection. We generally speak of people who do 80% of perfection, whereas we don't put importance on the one who has actually done complete perfection, who has perfected human morality through his laudable morals, which were at the summit of perfection. His duties he completed with perfection, confidence, and elevated qualities, which were of the highest excellence. Our Prophet ﷺ was of perfection and was of the highest excellence. His extraordinary fear of God, his perfect worship, his seriousness, his fortitude, demonstrated the strength of his belief, his total certainty, and his complete steadfastness. These all show, as clearly as the sun, how utterly faithful, how utterly believing he was to his cause of Iman, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. The third droplet. If you wish, come, let us go to the Arabian Peninsula, to the era of bliss, to understand our Rasulullah SAW more perfectly. Let us go to the Arabian Peninsula, to the era of bliss. In our imaginations, we shall see him at his duties and visit him. Look, we see a person distinguished by his fine character and beautiful form. In his hand is a miraculous book, and on his tongue a truthful address. He is delivering a pre-eternal sermon to all mankind. He is delivering a speech to all mankind which surpasses all time. Indeed, to man, jinn, and angels, to all beings. Not only is he addressing mankind, he is also addressing the jinn, the angels, and to all beings, showing his elevated level of coming to the whole universe rather than just mankind, such as other prophets. He solves and expounds the strange riddle of the mystery of the world's creation. He solves and expounds the strange riddle of the mystery of the world's creation. We see countless philosophies who fail to answer this question, yet our Prophet ﷺ, with his perfect fine character, his beautiful form, his truthful address, he solves the strange riddle of mystery of why we were created. He answers these questions. He is uncomparable to any philosopher or any scholar. He discovers and solves the abstruse talisman, which is the mystery of the universe. He provides convincing and satisfying answers to the three awesome and difficult questions that are asked of all beings and have always bewildered and occupied minds. He answers the questions too. Where do you come from? Where do you come from? What are you doing here? What is your destination? Whereas when we look at philosophy, it is always short answers which do not answer the questions holistically. Whereas our Prophet ﷺ, he came by his beautiful character, through his actions and through his truthful speech. He gave convincing, satisfying answers to where do you come from? What are you doing here? What is your destination? Who else can explain such questions to us? The fourth droplet. See, he spreads such a light of truth, that if you look at the universe as being outside the luminous sphere of his truth and his guidance, you see it to be a place of general mourning. If you look at this world without the truth of his light which he speaks, you shall see the earth to be a place of general mourning, a place of death, a place where everything is strangers to one another. You see chaos, you see a hostile being, you see inanimate beings to be likely to be ghastly corpse, and living creatures like orphans, weeping at the blows of death and separation. Without his light, we see this world to be utter darkness. Such as if we were to understand our life without Islam, it would be total darkness without any meaning. It would be constant death, constant sickness, constant chaos and conflict. Now look, through the light which he spreads, that place of universal mourning, that place of universal death has been transformed into a place where Allah's names, his praises are recited in joy and ecstasy. We see the significant shift just by understanding the truth which he speaks. By adhering to the mission which he conveys to us, we see the big shift from the world being a place of death to the world being a place of understanding Allah's names, seeing the beauty in his names which are recited in joy and ecstasy. From a place of death, the world becomes a place of pure joy and pure ecstasy. All through the mission which our Rasulullah SAW has conveyed to us, which is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. The foreign, hostile beings, which was in the darkness which we mentioned before, through his light has become friends and brothers. While the dumb, dead, inanimate creatures have all become familiar officials and docile servants. The weeping complaining orphans, which were pained by constant death and separation, are now seen to be either reciting Allah's names and praises or offering thanks at being released from their duties. The fifth droplet. Although this light, the motion and movement of the universe, its variations, its changes and transformations, such as the natural changes which occur in the world, through this light cease being meaningless. They stop being meaningless, they stop being futile and playthings of chance. If we remove Allah from the world equation, everything should be mere chance, because nothing is controlling another being for it to occur in that exact same way. So nature has to be the plaything of chance. But through the lights which Rasulullah SAW conveys to us, the motion, the movement of the universe, all natural proceedings, changes and transformations stop being meaningless. They give meaning to the universe. Islam brings meaning to the universe. Futile and playthings of chance become dominical missives, pages inscribed with the signs of creation, pages inscribed with signs for us to contemplate and find Allah. They are mirrors to the divine names. The world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom, all through our Prophet Muhammad SAW. This is how deep the messengership goes beyond the hadith, beyond the Quran, beyond miracles. This is the reason of why Rasulullah SAW was sent to the universe. Through his light which he conveys, the motion, the movement of this whole universe, all creation, the changes, the transformations, the variations, they stop being meaningless. They become with meaning. They stop being playthings of chance. They become dominical missives, pages with signs of creation, mirrors to the divine names of Allah, showing Allah, resembling the names of Allah, being mirrors to His divine names. The world itself becomes a book of the eternally besought one's wisdom. The world, through Rasulullah SAW, the world becomes a book of Allah whereby He portrays to us His arts and His wisdom. Man's boundless weakness, his impotence, make him inferior to all other animals, and his intelligence, an instrument for conveying grief, sorrow and sadness, makes him more wretched. Yet, when he is illumined with that light, with the light given to us by our Rasul Muhammad SAW, he rises above all animals and all creatures. Man's boundless weakness, his impotence for conveying grief, sorrow and sadness, make him inferior to all other animals. His intelligence makes him more wretched, more depressed, in darkness. Yet, when he is illumined with that light, the light of our Rasul Muhammad SAW and his mission, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, he rises above all animals and all creatures. Through entreaty, his illuminated impotence, his poverty, his intelligence make him a petted monarch. It shows the human's transcendence from bringing a lowly creature to a petted monarch, a king. Due to his complaints, he becomes a spoiled vicegerent of the world. He becomes a padishah, a king of the earth. That is to say, if it were not for his light, the universe and man and all things would be nothing. That is to say, if it were not for our Rasul's light, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam's light, the universe and man, humankind, and the rest of the world would be nothing. Because what would be the point? Yes, certainly, such a person is necessary. Our Rasul is necessary in such a wondrous universe. Otherwise, the universe and firmaments would not be in existence. Why would Allah create all of this world for nothing? For purely a sake of chance, a place of pleasure. What would be the point? Just like what would be the point of a life without any meaning? The sixth droplet. Thus, that being, our Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam brings and announces the good news of eternal happiness. He is the discoverer and proclaimer of an infinite mercy, the herald and observer of the boundaries, of the beauties, of the sovereignty of dominicality. He is the discloser and displayer of the treasures of the divine names. He is the one who has discovered and displayed the treasures of Allah's names to us. He is our teacher who has taught us how to understand the divine names of Allah and how to implement them into our own daily life, how to contemplate them. If you regard him in that way, that is, in regard to his being a worshipful servant of Allah, you will see him to be the model of love, the exemplar of mercy, the glory of mankind, the most luminous fruit, the most shining fruit of the tree of all creation, the most perfect of all creation. If you regard him, if you regard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in that way, that is, in regard to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam being a worshipful servant of Allah, you will see him to be the model of love, the exemplar of mercy, the glory of mankind, the luminous fruit, the most luminous fruit of the tree of creation. If we think of all humankind put together on this table in front of us, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would be the greatest human to ever live. And I think that in itself is actually amazing, that he was the most perfect human to ever live. Regardless of what perfect human we can think of, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam actually, he himself already did that. He was, through his actions, the most perfect creature to ever live. While if you look in this way, that is, in regards to his messengership, you see him to be the proof of Allah. You see him to be the proof of Allah. This in itself is an extremely elevated rank which we can't even comprehend. He is the proof of Allah. He is the lamp of truth. He is the sun of guidance. He is the means to happiness. While if you look in this way, so initially it spoke about looking at him through the eyes of seeing him as a servant to Allah and seeing how perfect he was as a servant to Allah. Whereas now when we look at him through the eyes of him being a prophet through his messengership, we see him as a prophet to be the proof of Allah, the lamp of truth, the sun of guidance, the means to happiness. I mean, we all try to be happy every single day in our lives, yet the key is right here. Our Prophet ﷺ is the means to happiness. The way he lived his life, even through all the sorrows which he has been through, has led to ultimate happiness. Even though his life was not one of comfort, he still had the highest level of happiness that anyone can ever have in this world. And look, his light has lighted up from the east to the west like dazzling lightning. And half the earth and a fifth of mankind has accepted the gift of his guidance. Till today, Islam is still growing, the quickest growing religion in the world today. So till today, we are still accepting the gift of his guidance. So his guidance has surpassed time. He is guiding us from 1400 years ago. No one can show a book which can guide from 1400 years ago, because the contextual factors have completely changed. But he is still guiding us from 1400 years ago, and preserved that guidance like life itself. So how is it that our evil commanding souls and shaitans do not accept with all its degrees? The basis of all such a being claimed, all that our Rasulullah SAW claimed, his true mission, his core value, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. The eighth droplet. You know that a small habit like cigarette smoking among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with a great effort. I feel like this is extremely relevant to our current days. A packet of cigarettes is currently about $40. We know all the health downfalls which it has. We know all the problems which it causes. Yet we can't remove it from our lives. You know that a small habit like cigarette smoking among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with great effort. For instance, let's say Australia. Imagine someone came and tried to remove cigarette smoking from the population. We would know that it would have to be a supreme power for him to make everyone stop smoking. But look, this being removed numerous ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical, large nations with slight outward power and little effort in a short period of time, and in their place he so established exalted qualities that they became as firm as if they had mingled with their very blood. But look, this being Rasulullah SAW removed numerous ingrained habits such as racism, such as alcoholics. He removed these numerous negative ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical large nations. He has removed them from the world with slight outward power and little effort. Only through preaching his mission, only through preaching La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, he has removed these negative ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical large nations with slight outward power, without force and little efforts in a short period of time. We can see that when someone embraces Islam, we can see significant changes, whereas there is no force. And in those places of those negative traits, he establishes exalted qualities that they became as firm as if they had mingled with their very blood. He achieved very many extraordinary feats like this. He didn't do it once or twice. He did this over countless amounts of time. He is still doing it today. As we have said, he is guiding us from 1400 years ago and still causing these massive changes. He achieved many extraordinary feats like this. Thus, we present the Arabian Peninsula as a challenge to those who refuse to see the testimony of the blessed age of the prophets. Let those who challenge our Prophet ﷺ and challenge his mission each take 100 philosophers, not one person, 100 philosophers. Go to the Arabian Peninsula to a time where they would bury their own daughters alive and strive for 100 years, not like our Prophet's 23 years. So take 100 people, go there, spend 100 years instead of 23. Would they be able to carry out in that time 100th of what he achieved in a year? If we look at religion compared to atheism, religion can change significantly. Religion can change people significantly in a very short amount of time. Such as people with depression. Islam can be a very good source for them to actually get rid of their depression and become happy through understanding Allah and through understanding Qadar and so on. Whereas when we look at atheism, such as was explained here, they will not be able to attain 100th of what Islam can do. Let them each take 100 philosophers, go to any time, and let them strive for 100 years. Would they be able to carry out the changes which Islam can do? 100th of what Islam can do, can they achieve it in 100 years? And I think that answer is very simple. And time definitely tells. Thank you for listening, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, we'll see you again next week. Allah Rasul. Allah Fatiha.